Hello, this is Dr. Dan. In this presentation, I'm going to go through with you a detailed discussion of the employment life cycle. This diagram, as you can see here, looks rather complex. However, we are going to go through this once again in great detail, and I will explain each of these various components of the employment life cycle. So let's first off discuss what the employment life cycle is. First off, employment. You'll notice I used the word employment, not employee, because this is more about the entire organization and the employment of the various individuals within an organization from the beginning of the time that they're within an organization to the end, but also then the next people that fill the position, thus the term cycle, as well as everything combined within the organization, the culture, the climate, some of those things. And then I use the word life cycle because there is, just like life, there's typically a beginning to the end of the organization, of positions within the organization, of perhaps a culture within the organization, climate. There's a beginning to end to all those things. So that's why we refer to this as the employment life cycle. Let's go ahead and first talk about, in general, the cycle of, let's say, an employee when they come to an organization for whatever position that may be. First off, that would typically begin with recruitment. Looking for someone, whether it's inside the organization, outside the organization, you somehow, some way need to start recruiting to fill a vacancy. Then we have selection. So now once you have recruited an individual or multiple individuals, now we want to figure out how do we go ahead and select the best candidate for the job, or potentially there's only one. And so then we got to determine, do we want to hire this individual or not? That's the selection portion of the employment life cycle. Then we have training. So now once that individual is hired, now we need to train them for the position. We will assume that perhaps they already understand some of the things that are associated with the job. However, there is typically always some sort of training, even for high-level positions, that needs to be done. Then comes development. Training and development, there's some crossover there. However, perhaps we can refer to training as more of the task-oriented activities, development perhaps more of the intrinsic types of knowledge one can gain, such as communication strategies, leadership skills, some of those things, and perhaps even developing at an individual level certain challenges individuals have. So training might be more for that particular position and positions, as well as safety and some other concerns that an organization may have. Development, perhaps more on the individual level. Then we transition into evaluation. So now what we want to do is evaluate the employees to monitor their performance, see what areas perhaps they need to be developed, and then in turn also if we need to perhaps let employees go. And then at some point here, we perhaps do some succession planning, figure out who is going to be best to fill certain jobs once people get promoted, move on up, so there's a vacancy there, or perhaps people quit or are let go, so there's a vacancy. And then, of course, we go back to recruitment again. Now, within this entire employment life cycle, there's a lot of other things going on. And so we're going to identify and address some key concepts within the employment life cycle. So first off, the various components of the life cycle, there's always involved some sort of legal and ethical challenges. Recruitment, selection, are we biased in our decision making? Is there some sort of invalid measures that we're using for selecting employees that perhaps could lead to some legal consequences? Or is there simply some ethical issues going on where perhaps people are being selected for certain reasons and it's deemed unethical, or both perhaps illegal and unethical? Same with training, evaluation. All of those areas, there's always some sort of legal and ethical challenges that are associated with these various aspects of the employment life cycle. Within all of these areas, we have, or what is created essentially, is culture. So what you have is you have a variety of, from your mission statement within an organization to rules, regulations, common practices. All of these things form the culture. So it's a combination of all of these various things, including legal and ethical decisions that are made that form the culture of the organization. Something similar to culture is climate, and these two terms can be a little bit challenging at times to understand. However, perhaps the way I understand it that might help you is culture is developed more through rules, regulations, and activities. However, climate is perhaps a little bit more about the people. So you can have a well-established culture, but perhaps even within that culture, so that's maybe more of the macro level, you have the micro level. So you may have departments, teams that make up this climate within an organization. And perhaps even right down to an individual level to some degree. So what I show you here is you have various types of climate. I put these on here no special order other than perhaps just because it makes some sense to me. An individual is first hired and there may be this climate that they're experiencing of everyone's supportive and it's just a wonderful place to work. They get surprised a little bit at some point due to some unexpected situations or challenges that were not expected, or just the challenges associated with the difficulties of a job and stress, leading up to perhaps at some point maybe the place just doesn't seem as attractive as when they were first hired, and finally leading to where they leave the organization. Now, does that always work that way? No. That's just kind of an example perhaps at really the micro level when you're looking at an individual. But when we're referring to climate, it's not only about individual, but about individuals and groups of individuals, and perhaps even up to the overall climate within an organization, particularly if there's some major challenges that's occurring within the organization. And then finally, we have this term thrown in here, performance management. So what the heck is this term over here, performance management? Well, performance management, similar to evaluation, would be essentially managing the various types and levels of performance at all stages of this employee life cycle. So as an example, if human resources is charged with certain numbers of individuals that they need to recruit and vacancies that need to be filled, and the processes that they're using to fill those vacancies, that is part of what performance management is all about. And then of course, training and developing the various employees, and again, the methods that are being used, how to evaluate them, look for ways to make them perhaps more efficient, more effective. And then as that employment life cycle of the individual starts coming to a close, that succession planning and looking for other people that ideally have been trained and developed to fill various positions. So this is the entire employment life cycle. I hope you better understand this concept, and by all means, it is not necessary. There's a lot more to it, a lot more details, but this should give you a general overview of what the employment life cycle is. Thank you, and I hope you have a really great and blessed day.